Oh, I do love this time of year, those fresh limey greens. They're so hopeful. Problem is it can actually be tricky to capture such a monochromatic scene. On this bank holiday weekend, I've decided to take a little bit of advantage, come away for a few days to Devon, to 3 locations where I'm going to try and capture properly, nicely, those lovely, fresh spring greens.
Devon is a county in southwest England with a very varied landscape. For example, sandy beaches and fossil cliffs, and Dartmoor National Park, famous for its moorlands, deep river valleys and dramatic rock formations called tors. I start my exploration for spring greens in Canon Falls on the east side of Dartmoor. And what I'm really looking for is the ability to contrast those fresh lime greens with other features, such as moving water, wood or stone. Spring seems to be a little bit delayed at this side of the country, and with this visit to England's highest waterfall, I'm looking to see whether or not I can also capture some of those spring flowers as part of my compositions. Right, time to get in that water. Come on! The flow in this area was a lot less than I was anticipating, and that rock is clearly far too dominant here. So a strategic move further back down the valley was definitely in order. Now this is a bit better, and being able to feature those ferns and that wild garlic was great, except they kept moving, and there's a branch in the way of the fall. So a time to meander further up towards the main fall and look for more water combining with those fresh greens. Getting down low can really help accentuate the power of the water, particularly if you've got a limited flow, as I have on this occasion. Now that's more like it, much more my style. It's worth noting that my preferred shutter speed of about 1/4 to 1/2 a second was too short and actually detracted and made the shot too busy. 1 second worked a treat. A little further up I came across a more classic view, one of the ones you see in the brochures. And in the background is that big old waterfall.
Now I'm doing long and short exposures of the water. My primary interest, weirdly, is the ferns and not the water. Just stunning, they're popping left, right and centre. I am not even going to attempt to capture this, because it's just going to look like one long streak coming down that hill.
Impressive in its own right, but let's face it, it's the foliage I'm here for, and the foliage that is just asking to be shot. I confess I had problems composing a shot that was balanced and processing any photos of this scene. It was just so yellow. Oh, no, wrong. Just wrong.
You'll probably be unsurprised to learn that I'm using a circular polariser to cut through glare and give a little bit of extra punch to those greens. Problem is, when I get them back on my computer, I think they're going to be so in your face that I'm going to have to work out how to process these so they, 1, look realistic, but 2, it's just not that monochromatic green blare.
There is absolutely no doubt that this place is lush and beautiful and impressive. But my camera remained in my bag because it was just so, well, in your face.
This little place is a microclimate, so it's really quite humid, but there's no wind, so the ferns are really flourishing. What a very special hidden gem this is. I've got a few photos further down the falls. I'm not taking anything up here, but it's just nice to have the place to ourselves. Well, that was Canon Falls, my location number 1. I have 2 more that I'm going to visit over the course of this bank holiday weekend so that I can try and capture the greens and then get it processed right so it doesn't look rubbish. 2 of the issues I have when I'm shooting greens, particularly at this lush time of year, is that the yellows can be really quite strong. You don't necessarily see them as much with the eye, but when you put them on the computer, you realise you've got to dial back those yellows so that you have something that's not hitting you in the face. The other thing as well is how on earth do you create a little bit of depth in your photo when you have that monochromatic scene? That is for me to work out later.
Right, time for me to check in at the campsite and get ready for a joyous day tomorrow. Oh heck, not a cloud in the sky. Here we go.
Welcome to Meldon Reservoir on a very blue sky day. Not what I was expecting at all. Today's greens should be a little bit different. Around this area there are various woodlands, including an ancient oaky one So I'm going to explore, see what I come up with. Might be a bit too contrasty. In which case, probably not a lot.
Well, it's all very nice for reflections, but that's absolutely not what I'm here for. This is going to be quite tough, I think.
Whenever we come away, my long-suffering beloved celebrates a little bit when we get nice weather. I don't. He doesn't really appreciate the fact that I need misery in my life. So where I'm standing at the end of the reservoir, which leads through a little valley, which meanders down through, and at the opposite end down there, you've got Meldon Viaduct.
Well, there's no doubt this was an impressive place to be. And if we wanted to get to our destination, we had to walk the full length of the reservoir and on for quite a long way. So, well, let's just press on.
Well, forgive the fact I'm clearly quite flushed. It's quite a long walk and it's quite warm. I am here to photograph different monochromatic scenes, not with tree greens this time, but I'm focusing on mosses and gnarl, hopefully.
Well, it's a lovely setting. Far too contrasty to shoot, but very lovely.
Well, when I left my hometown yesterday, it was going to be pretty poor weather today, and that blue sky just doesn't help anything. I'm having to try and take some shots when the sun pops behind the clouds. But I think this is going to be more of a place of failing photographically, but actually just really enjoying exploring and being here.
When I mentioned failure photographically, let's put the word epic in front of it. My camera pretty much remained in my bag, so I sent the drone up instead. Yeah, that's all I could do.
This is not easy at all.
Now that's a proper understatement.
Forget the sun, it's just everything. It's just wow. This is where you definitely need mist. So it's just a matter of waiting for any cloud to go over that sun before you can sort of frame something up. And you've got about a second, 2 seconds, 3, gone.
Sometimes you just got to know when to give up. Too much sun, but you know what? The next day looked more miserable. Fantastic.
Good morning. Today I'm back in my comfort zone, meaning it's miserable weather, and therefore that makes me happy. Sunshine doesn't do me much good when I got my camera out. Back on the moors near a place called Peter Tavy, which is actually where we're staying. Got a very good pub if you are ever interested in a good meal. It is your typical Dartmoor weather today, and I think had we had this yesterday, I'd have been a little bit more successful at shooting those lovely gnarly oaky trees than I was. Yeah, that went somewhat wrong. One of the delights of being in Dartmoor at this time of year is the flowers. I know they're all over the place regarding timing, but they are just so pretty. But they're not the greens that I'm hoping to shoot today. Today is about water and the fresh greens, ferns in particular, that surround a really pretty impressive set of falls. Ooh, greens. That might be quite interesting. Gate open at the bottom. Yeah. Well, how much green can a girl want? Object is to capture the greens with this loveliness flowing through it. I've gone quite low down, also a little bit higher. varying my speeds between 0.25 and 0.4 of a second, and just for a laugh, that's like a little stopper on, but I really do not like those long exposures. This brook has such personality. I just feel it's a crime not to show it off. Having said that, that's assuming I have shown it off. Since I'm proclaiming the greens are so important today, I am focused a couple of shots using these two as foregrounds. Not amazing, but they get the point across.
I am clearly being seduced by these ferns. They're so lush though. If I was going to stop at every fern and do a focus stack, it's going to be a very long day. I need to get on and find my favourite waterfall. And here it is. Ah. Well, that's perhaps not the most comfortable looking of shooting positions.
Crikey. Long exposure this time, just because it's making the greens pop. This rock right in front here. Again, focus stacking, really essential. Quite different, quite different.
Well, it's the composition of the rocks that makes this shot for me. A little bit like a paw print, don't you think?
Well, other than using my circular polariser to accentuate the greens of the ferns and the blues of the bluebells, the only other real creative decisions I had to make was how long my shutter speed was going to be and where I plonked myself. Technical expression, you understand. So now it just remains for me to try and get it right in post so that I can lead the eye to the places I want you to see and perhaps direct it away by dodging and burning into other areas. Wish me luck.
Well, this weekend I have had varying degrees of success, but I would love to know if any of my 3 favourites have caught your eye. Genuinely, this was more difficult than I anticipated, and I very much needed to have another element, i.e. the moving water, in order for me to have some semblance of success.
Well, thank you for joining me today on what has now become a very soggy Dartmoor. If you enjoyed this, I'd love it if you could give me a like or subscribe. Meanwhile, wherever I am next time, I look forward to taking you with me. Take care.
If you'd like to see more spring stuff, have a look at this. If you fancy something completely different, well, go for this.